because relationships don't often fall apart in some dramatic boom explosion. They die a death of 1,000 cuts, right?
Hello. Okay.
Hey, Patricia.
Keep hitting it. Keep hitting it.
All
How are
right.
you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, I'm excited about today's
I
conversation.
am too. I am too. Do you want to take the lead here and introduce the topic?
Yeah, our topic today is going to be linguistic alchemy. But before we get into that, I just want to say something. I want to say that I believe that love wins, and it's the most powerful energy, frequency, and force that we have. And I think that we're just overcomplicating things, and we need to just take it back down and keep it simple to love. And linguistic alchemy is kind of like that. The way we used to talk to each other in the beginning, right? We were more aware of what we were saying. We were more like cognizant of how it was going to come across and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into like linguistic alchemy, but I really want to keep it simple and
Love
just
it.
get back to love because that's how we treated each other in the beginning of the relationship. And that's what I want to impart with the linguistic alchemy is it's kind of like linguistic alchemy is the art of using language to transform relationships, communication, and personal growth. And the goal of linguistic alchemy is to use language to promote positive change and foster healthy relationships. So that's what we're going to talk about today
I love it.
is how that kind of comes across. And I'm going to give examples because I always learn through, give me an example. Like I want to understand, give me an example. So we're going to talk about relationships, how it can help couples communicate effectively. It can help to resolve conflicts, build stronger connections, and reframe negative thoughts and beliefs into positive ones. So how does that sound?
I think that's the best introduction we've ever had for a topic. I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
stoked now. I was already excited, but then I heard you introduce the topic. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yes. I mean,
Mhm.
linguistic alchemy is basically just about like paying attention to your language, right? I mean, it's pretty much that simple. So using positive language, reframing negative thoughts or language, actively listening, so important. Which you wouldn't think that's part of linguistic alchemy. There's a tongue twister, but it really is. Asking open-ended questions. So, for example, like Jeff, I'm sure you can talk about this, is using positive language. Language that emphasizes what you want rather than what you don't want. So would you like
Oh
to
yeah.
get in here?
Yeah. You know, gosh, it's funny because I think I have been subscribing to this idea or philosophy or discipline without putting it into actual words. It's kind of funny because it's about words.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's so many different ways to communicate the same thing.
Mhm.
And language is so very powerful. So, even outside of the context of a relationship, how we talk to ourselves, if we
Mhm.
listen to the way we talk to ourselves, that's how we begin to create like real change in our lives. So
Yeah.
if we are saying things like, maybe we make a mistake or we experience failure and we're like, oh my gosh, this always happens to me. That is so
Yeah.
self-defeating. So
Wow.
when you can isolate it to a single instance and say, okay, this may not have worked out the way I wanted it to, but this is just one instance in my life. That is so much more empowering than saying this always happens to me. And it may be true, there may be patterns in your life, but still using the right language to talk to ourselves, I think that really enables us to begin to use that language with our partners. And I think the most obvious example is when we talk about how we approach our partners during a conflict, never using the word never or always. You know,
Yeah.
you can even say things like, I see a pattern here, or, this is consistently happening. That is so much easier to hear to my ears. I am much less likely to become defensive if I hear that language versus, you always do this. And I think, oh man, I'm going to think of the one example where I didn't do it just to prove you wrong. Right?
Right. Because now it's like defensive. Now it's like I got to prove myself or I got to
Yeah.
prove my worth. But I love that you brought up the fact, the way we talk to ourselves, because it's so important. Like, if you do something, you're like, oh, I'm so stupid. Like, don't
Yes.
talk to yourself like that. You wouldn't talk to other
Right.
people like that. So don't talk to yourself like that. And just becoming self-aware of the negative language versus positive language and reframing that in yourself and say, you know what?
Mhm.
There's something here I can learn about. There's something, a way I can grow about it. And just going to keep going and keep trying, you know, that's just who I am. I don't give up or whatever. So yeah, just being aware of that. So the example in positive language, we're going to go back to the trash here, but it's just a simple thing. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be that big of a thing. It can just be a simple thing. So an example of using language that emphasizes what you want rather than what you don't want, right? So that's super important. And I think if you say things like, don't forget to take out the trash, versus remember to take out the trash, you know, like there's just this negative, don't forget, like you know what I mean? And it's just a simple shift, but it creates a more positive and proactive tone with your partner or with anybody else and with other example. So I think just, you know, emphasizing what you want rather than what you don't want, super important.
I felt that. As soon as you said that, I felt the difference. I really did.
You feel it, right? You can feel it when you sit with it and you say it to yourself. You're like, don't do that. Oh, remember to do that. You know, like it's just lighter. It's just more what I want versus what you're not doing, you know? So it's a whole different thing. So that would be my first one, is just positive language. The next one is reframing negative language. So when you or your partner use negative language, try to reframe it into a more positive light. So an example I can give of that is like, this is where you say, I hate it when you forget to call me, you know? I'm not saying you always do or never or whatever, but I just hate it, right? So instead of saying, I feel more connected to you when we talk on the phone. Doesn't that sound better, right? Just these little subtleties. This is, again, taking a negative to a positive, you know, like, I just feel more connected to you when we talk on the phone or when you text me during the day. Like, it just makes my day, you know, it makes me feel good. And I want to feel connected to you. So that's the second one, I think, is just reframing the negative language.
This is resonating with me. Keep going. I'm loving this.
Another one is active listening. And I want you to jump in on this after I give the example, because this isn't really an example, actually. This is just making a conscious effort to really listen to your partner when they're speaking. This means giving them your full attention, avoiding interrupting, and acknowledging their feelings and needs. I know you have something to say about active listening.
Oh my gosh. You know, I think, I feel like the thing that we all want in relationships, and we're all different. We're all unique snowflakes. I understand that. So we all want different things, and this is nuanced. But I think there are things that we can use to kind of give us direction in relationships is we want to see effort in our partners to understand us, to understand our opinions, our feelings. You know, and active listening is like the cornerstone of that. It is, if I see my partner maybe not buy into stories that she might want to tell herself about what I'm saying, because I do the same thing. I can see it sometimes in these conversations that we have. And she's actively listening and she's asking me clarifying questions, not to pick apart my argument, but to actually understand me better. There's nothing more I can ask for. That's exactly what I want, you know? So active listening to me is one of the most positive things you can do in relationships. And, you know, when you were speaking about your examples earlier about reframing the language that we use, it's interesting. It's interesting because I haven't really thought about it in this context before, but I think you're talking about the difference between opening and closing your partner. If you are using negative language, your partner's going to close. You're going to shut them down. And if you're using positive language, they're going to be open. The same thing with active listening. If you're actively listening, then you are showing yourself that you are open. So you're demonstrating the openness that you want to see in your partner because you're trying to understand them better. So I hope I answered the question.
I love that. I mean, you're saying that if you're open, right? You're actively listening and you're open. You're ready to receive, right? Closed, you're not ready to receive. You're just trying to push your point across, and that's not helping. I mean, everybody wants to be seen and heard and understood. And yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. And I love that we're all our unique snowflakes. That's so cute.
I got to give credit to somebody else. They taught me that a long time ago.
That's okay. That's okay. We all pick up things from everywhere, right? And then it becomes part of our understanding. So another one is asking open-ended questions. So instead of asking closed questions that only require a yes or no answer, ask open-ended questions that encourage dialogue and deeper understanding. So an example I can give of this, instead of saying, "Did you have a good day?" you're going to get a yes or no. You can say, what was the best part of your day? And that's
I
just
use that.
simple. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I love that one. And I was like, because then it starts a dialogue. Well, this happened or that happened, and it starts that conversation, the connection that you're looking for. So, open-ended
Hmm.
questions, I think, is another one that's super important. And
If I may,
yeah,
just really like really quick, because you gave me a glimmer there, which is, so if you ask that question, like, how was your day? I think
mhm,
that that's good to show interest in your partner's, day. However, that if they're in like a negative mindset or they've had a bad day, that can keep them there. That can keep them kind of like, you know what, today sucked. Today was really hard, which may be true. But if you ask someone what the best part of their day is, that's going to make them kind of mine their day for positivity. So
right.
it's a shift. You're kind of like giving direction to your partner, and we find what we look for. So I love this. I love that advice.
Yeah, and I used to practice that with a partner too, and be like, "What's the best part of your day?" And then that gives you that habit of going into your day looking for it, because you're like, "Is this it? Is this
Hmm.
pretty good?" And then you go
Hmm.
over here and you're like, "Well, this is good too, and this might be better than that." And then you start getting into a positive mindset, and it really does help
Yes.
to shift you
Yes.
into that positivity. Even if you're having a bad day, like even on your bad days when you created and developed this habit, like sometimes I'll do that when I go to bed at night, and I'm like, "Okay, what were the great things about my day?" And I'll start
Mhm.
going through my mind and thinking about them to positivity, and like little glimmers, like you said, it might be like I saw that pretty flower, because I
Mhm.
might have had a terrible day, but there was something. There was something.
Yes.
So it makes this practice. So when your hard days do come, you have that practice and that habit, and it helps to shift you into a better state. So I think
Mhm.
that's an important thing to
Mhm.
practice with your partner if they want to. It's all about if they feel like it. Um, the next one I would say is practice empathy. So try to
Mm.
understand your partner's perspective and feelings, even if you don't agree with them.
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
and I have to say a lot of conflict comes in here, right? Because a lot of people think that they have to change their partner's mind or they have to make them understand,
Yeah.
but if you sit there from a place of trying to understand their perspective, most likely then they're going to be open too to try to understand your
Yeah.
perspective. But if you're just
Yeah.
trying to push so I think this is where a lot of people go off the rails, when they try to push their perspective,
Yes.
their way of thinking, their way of being onto their partner, like, because
Yeah.
I have to change your mind, because I
Yeah.
have to be right or have to win or whatever. So maybe you
Mhm.
can touch on it a little.
Yeah. Um, if I see this a lot in my comments, if you just thought the way I did, then you wouldn't be upset. So just see it from my perspective and problem solved. That's how we think, which is
Hmm.
not how it's not how our partners work. And um, in my own personal experience, I've seen where a lot of people tend to think that, why should I try to empathize with my partner if they're not thinking logically? I see that all the time.
Oh,
And I, again, like, I'm
okay.
a big guy defender here. I'm a guy, so I do not want
Right,
to pick on guys. But I tend to see that perspective more because guys are logical, typically more logically or logic thinking.
right,
And the thing is, though, relationships aren't about logic. This is relational thinking. And so when
right,
you're in a relationship, the goals of that kind of relationship are different than trying to solve a math problem or a science problem. Yes, you can use logic there, but in a relationship, you should be thinking along the lines of, like, is this healthy for my relationship? And I think where a lot of us get really bogged down, especially as a man, is we have this idea that there's this objective truth, and that
mhm,
if
yes,
everybody could see it, I see it. If everybody could see it the way I see it, problem solved. And the thing is, there is no objective truth. It is just my opinion, as logical as I think it is.
right,
Patricia, you and I will see the same event in a different way, and your experience is just as valid as mine. And you talked
right,
about practicing empathy, especially when you disagree with your partner. If you can learn to practice empathy, then if you can learn to put yourself in their shoes, not to disprove how they feel, or kind of show them that their feelings are wrong, then uh, that's like a magical step in a relationship when you can use the differences in how you view the world to deepen understanding.
deepen the connection. Yeah, that's beautifully said. I love
And I
that.
think we're
And
frozen.
yeah, like we were talking
There
a
we
little
go.
bit last week. Last time we were talking was like the oil and water thing. Sometimes
Yes.
logic with oil and feelings are water, and they just don't mix. So you have to wait for that, like, that blend, right? Because you can't make a vinaigrette, right? You have to blend it together. There's, so I guess you're trying to do that. You're trying to like mash that in there. You can still have logic, but when somebody's trying to express how they feel about something, maybe that's not the time to bring it in. And it's try to see the perspective, have some understanding, be open to have that active listening and receive them. And then once they feel seen, heard, and all of that, then you can say, hey, what about, this or whatever, and this is how I see things, this is what I'm thinking. And that's where the beauty comes in, when you can kind of like meld those things together. Did we make comments, or should we go into examples? Let's see what's going on.
We do. And there's one more thing I want to add there, because I think this is important. So this is what I've learned, because I'm big on here of talking about how, like, don't just solve your partner's problems, ask them. And I've heard from women saying, like, hey, sometimes I want my problem solved. That's exactly why I bring them up, because I want them solved. If you want clarification here, just ask your partner. Let them know, like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a challenging situation to be in. Do you want to hear my 2 cents on this, or you just need me to listen, because I can do either. That right there, bringing your partner in.
That clarity is what you need. Say, you know what, I just need you to listen to me right now, sweetie, because I just need to talk about this. I don't need you to solve it, but I just want to listen. Or I need your help with this. So maybe you can give me some advice. And then that invites either way. I think being clear about that is really helpful to your partner, because then they know what their role is.
Yeah.
Like, do I just
we're talking about getting rid of the
for you, or do I help you solve it?
Yes.
That's what I need to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So give me some time. Let's see what we got.
Let's go. Okay. I'm gonna start at the beginning here. Let's hope I don't miss any. Okay, we've got a statement here with a question. So we want to be heard, and we want them to acknowledge what has been said, not necessarily a solution at that stage, but do they understand what I feel? That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Meeting, like, seeing those feelings, acknowledging them, validating them, and then asking, like, okay, that's challenging.
Yeah.
You want some more? How best can I support you? I love that. I love that question.
I do too. Yeah. How can I support you right now? It's a great question. And I think asking better questions gets you better answers, right?
Yes.
Our next comment. I think we kind of covered that, so hopefully they picked up on what we were saying. Yeah.
And then they went on to add, and empathy should be accompanied with follow-up and the interaction, or during the interaction, which I think we've already spoke to. Okay. It's a good one. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is a good one right here.
Yeah.
This is a golden question. What to do when a partner is highly reactive? We all want to know the answer to that one, right? Do you want me to lead off, or do you want to go?
I think that when somebody's in a reactive state, is, if you're coming to your partner using linguistic alchemy, hopefully they're not going to get into a reactive state, right? Because that's how you're coming with a soft start, with all of that stuff. But if they do, then you have to take a step back and say, this conversation, isn't going the way I want it to. And I see that maybe, we can take this and put a pin in it, and we can talk about it later. I love you, and I value the relationship more than I value this little upset right now. And maybe just, give them a little physical touch, like touch their leg, their arm, give them a kiss or whatever, and just try to take it down and de-escalate that if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. But I think that it's not the time to start talking about anything in depth, for sure.
Sure.
Jeff?
Yes. Okay. So, I've been digging into this a lot lately. Yeah. First and foremost, you can do everything right, and you can't stop your partner from becoming reactive or defensive if that's their mindset. You can take steps to control how you contribute to the situation, but it's up to them to participate and meet you at that level. And the things you can do that you spoke to, be mindful of the language that you use. So you can use a soft start up. Make sure you don't blame. Let them know that the focus of the conversation is about your feelings for them, and that you wouldn't be talking to them if the relationship wasn't important to you. And especially with guys, I think it's important to highlight some of the good things that your partner is doing. So make sure to maybe use the sandwich technique. You start with positivity. Hey, you do a lot of great things. this thing, I got my feelings hurt and I want to talk to you about it. And then finish with, and this doesn't change how I feel about you,
Mhm.
right? So sandwich it up.
Same, right, right. We love the sandwich.
Yes. And this is something
You're bringing up with linguistic alchemy and another compliment, so it can
yes,
open up
yeah,
the dialogue.
it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
works.
And
So,
men get a ton of compliments. I have to say that, right? I mean,
yes,
women get
yeah,
a ton of compliments because that's how a lot of times men will approach us, is with compliments. So I think complimenting your man goes a really long way because they don't hear that a lot. So I
hmm
think it's like, who doesn't love compliments? Who
hmm
doesn't want to be felt good? Feel good during your day. So throw some
yeah,
compliments in there.
I think you make a really valuable point, this is like non-gender specific advice. We all like to be acknowledged for the good things we contribute to a relationship, and if our partners come to us, typically I get really tense if I have thought about stuff that I want to talk about too long, and so I don't
Yeah,
bring like humor, and I don't bring my best self into
yeah, yeah,
conversation at all times, and so. Um, it's easy for my partner to sense it and start to be like, uh-oh, here we go. And then if I lead with something negative, man, she's going to feel like, oh, I don't do anything right. And that's the last thing you want your partner to feel like, because then they're not going to be listening to you. A partner doesn't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, then they're not going to listen well. Right.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say also try to change your perspective about your partner. Like, think good things about them. I mean, this is the person that you love. This is the person you're in a relationship with. So when you're coming into a discussion with them, like Jeff was saying with the sandwich, put them in a positive
Yes.
light. Like, you might be mad about something, but it's not about them. It's like you and your partner against the problem. So think about it that way. It's us against this pattern of behavior,
hmm
right? So if you're avoidant and I'm anxious or whatever, it's us against the pattern of behavior. I can see we're going into that.
hmm
So think about the team versus I need what I want, what I need versus you're not, so that kind of thing. I think just keeping it in a perspective of us against the problem is always helpful. And I know we've said that a million times, but I feel like you can't drill these things in enough.
Agreed. Yes. That's golden advice. Um, let's see here. We've got logic doesn't need to be applied in the heat of the moment. Let's not solve the problem because it comes across as trying to get rid of my whining. And I just want really quickly. I want to say I've heard that experience from a lot of women, unfortunately, which is they feel like their partners want their feelings to just go away. They have the experience of their male partners feeling like they're just bothering them by bringing stuff up to them, and that's problematic for a ton of reasons, right? But
Mhm.
definitely the point about logic doesn't need to be applied in the heat of the moment. I've learned from firsthand experience, if I just take a moment and meet my partner at the emotional level and be like, hey, I can see you're upset. You know, let's not forget that I love you. Let's not forget that this is about the health of our relationship before we say anything else. And if we need to take a break, we can come back. But I'm your teammate here. I'm on your side,
Right.
even if we're disagreeing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Another thing I'll say about logic is I forget where I heard this, but it was like, if you come to, let's say a man in this case, because like retirement men kind of use that side of the brain and think more logically, with an emotion and it doesn't logically make sense to the man, he may dismiss it, right?
hmm
And
hmm
that's where things go off the rail because now you're dismissing how I feel and try because it doesn't fit in with the logic that you have. So again, that active listening and listening to understand. And again, it might just be that I just want you to listen. I don't really want you to solve it. So
Yeah.
being clear about what you would like from your partner makes it a lot easier on them. And then
Yes.
again, the active listening, which I am so guilty of, and I'm really working on that and I'm interrupting a lot less. Hopefully, you noticed that today.
I see the effort. I'm sure he does. Acknowledging it is a big part of it. I feel like acknowledging something is
Mhm.
it's a bigger step forward than people realize because
Mhm.
you're aware of it and you're acknowledging it. And so to me, you've already got the process started, which is
Yeah,
huge. Yeah.
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 Okay, do we have more comments or should I go into some
That's
examples?
it. Let's get into examples.
Okay, so here's an example. These are instead of saying, you never help me with anything, try saying, I could really use your help with this task. Would you be willing to assist me? Or can you help me out
hmm
right now?
hmm
And then you can gauge, and you have to be okay to hear no sometimes too, if they
hmm
can't. Um, so another example of linguistic alchemy is why can't you ever do anything right? You never do anything right. Like, that's a terrible way to approach something. I noticed that the task didn't go as planned. Can we work together to figure out how to make it better next time? Or, just another soft way to approach it, and changing your language goes a lot. Like, if I say that to you, you're like, yeah, we can work together and figure something out. Or, oh, yeah, okay, I forgot. Or they might come with, like, you're open to hearing what they have to say versus in that attack mode, which sometimes, we can get into one. Have familiarity with our partner, and this is why I go back to like that, go back to the basics, go back to in the beginning, how you spoke to them, how you wanted to impress them, how you wanted to talk to them, and how you want to see you. If you just take it back to the simple, then you're there, right? And that's halfway with the battle. So another one, instead of saying things like, you know, you're lazy, or you're always so lazy on Saturday or something, so you could just say, I could use your help with this task. Would you be willing to lend me a hand? If you're asking for help for something, then they know what you're looking for versus, and they might not want to do it. Maybe they are tired from work all week or whatever. So you have to be willing to hear no sometimes to partners, and that's okay. And maybe they'll give you another time when they can, like, oh, not today, but I'll help you with it tomorrow or something. And then you'd be like, okay. So you've got that, flow open. And I know some of these examples sound terrible, but I mean, this is how people talk to each other sometimes. It really is. So instead of saying things like, I can't believe you forgot about our plans, or I can't believe you forgot this, try saying, I was really looking forward to spending time together. Can we make plans for another day? That just takes it to like, I didn't say, you forgot, making you a bad person or the bad guy or whatever. I'm just saying I was really looking forward to that. Can we make plans for another day? Like, I just want to turn around to let you know I want to spend time together. I want to do these things. So that's another one.
Yes.
Another one that I've heard a lot of people say is, you're so selfish, or you never think about my needs. I think that's a better way to say it. People say, you never think about my needs. Try saying, like, I feel like my needs and my feelings are being overlooked. Can we talk about how we can both feel heard and valued in this relationship? Because you can still say, like, maybe your need isn't getting met for something, but instead of saying, you're not meeting my needs, or I feel like my needs are, are being, you can say, I feel like my needs are being overlooked. And I really want to talk about how we can both feel valued and heard and loved in this relationship. So, are you open to talking about that? So just these little linguistic things. And like I said, going back to that beginning, going back to the love of where you started, will take you a long, long way. Getting back to, everybody's always like, I want to get back to the beginning when it was so wonderful and like this. Well, how did you talk to each other in the beginning? How did you treat each other in the beginning? How did you show up in the beginning? Then show the same, and you're going to get back to the same, right?
Yes. In the very beginning, we're building a foundation, and oftentimes we get away from that. And once we get more comfortable, maybe we're less ideal versions of ourselves toward our partner because we feel comfortable. We can start to, like, I don't know, not comb our hair all the time, and we trust them more, and I think that's when, like, our inner child starts to come out, and we start to be more complaining, or we start to be less optimistic about things, or we show our frustration more often. And you're so on point about these practices, because the more work you put into these things today, the more work, the more effort, the more time you invest in using the right kind of language that supports a healthy relationship, the less effort you have to put into your relationship long term, because you've built these patterns, you've built these habits, you know what language works and what doesn't, so you don't get tripped up in these things. What happens is, when you spend years, decades building poor habits, using poor language, and not every relationship needs to have positive language and stuff. Some relationships work with people using language that I wouldn't use in my relationship. But as a general rule, what we're talking about is building that foundation continually, each day, brick by brick, interaction by interaction, because relationships don't often fall apart in some dramatic boom explosion. They die a death of 1,000 cuts, right? And it's these tiny little injustices, these tiny little disrespects, that eventually become unbearable.
Yeah, I love all of the stuff you said. I'm like, I wish I had a little lighter to like light up the fire or whatever. But I think that you're right. Like that's what it's about. It's these habits in the beginning. Now, I'm not saying don't be who you are and don't be your authentic self and don't let your guard down and be that. But you can still do that and still come at it with better habits, right? You can still be your authentic self, but still bring these habits that you need to build and keep it simple. Go back to the basics of love. And that's where it
Yes.
comes from. Starting with love, keep it in love, and build the habits of love. And you're going to have a much more easy, successful,
Yes.
satisfying, beautiful relationship if you can
Hmm.
just, like I said, be your authentic self, but bring it back to love. That's my
Yes.
takeaway.
I love it. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patricia. I think we nailed this one.
I think
Should we put a
we're
pin in
good.
it?
I think our time, we did a half hour, so I think we're good. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. And if you want to hear about any topic, throw us a comment and we would be happy to talk about it or address it.
Yes.
So until then,
Thank you so much.
keep it simple, get back to love, and work on your linguistic alchemy, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.